she said. What you say? That you only meant when.
Hey Young America, hope all is well out there and that you guys are enjoying your Monday. I see that this weekend was Mother's Day and I hope you all enjoyed it, giving love to your loved ones, especially the moms out there. Thank you so much for all that you do. As well as this was a great weekend for many of you guys who graduated and are moving on to great things. So congratulations there and best wishes to your future. Hi, my name is Jasmine Jones and I'm here with the weekly address to young Americans. This show is sponsored by an organization called U, which stands for Young, Organized, and United. All right, so thanks guys for joining us for today's show. I'm very excited about it. It is called Interviewing is Like Your First Date. What do you say? So many of us are now transitioning into our next step and looking for the next new gig, right? And we've got to get ready for that first step, which is your interview, okay? And I think that for many of us, this is a very big deal, okay? And so today's show is to kind of explain how when it's time for you to get chose by an interviewer, sometimes you have to prepare for it, just like when it's time for you to get chose by a lover, right? And so what today we're going to talk about is just some ways that you can begin to use some of the tactics we may use for going on our first date and actually preparing for our very first interview, right? We are technically putting ourselves out there for someone to say, hey, you're the one, right? So the reason why this is so important is because there's so many young people out there that get blocked from the opportunity of being chose for the very best position just because of not being able to market themselves the best way when it came to the opportunity to talk about yourself. So we're going to just discuss some quick tips that I think are very important for preparing for that first interview that easily translate to how we really prepare for our first date. So definitely check in, and if you have more thoughts, love to hear you guys on Facebook to incorporate them and engage in conversation. So let's go ahead and go into it. So the very first one is, of course, we all know is to do your research, okay? So the reason why you want to do your research is this is the same thing you do before you go on a first date. I'm pretty sure many of us, A, call a friend and ask if we know any information about them, and B, we either go on Facebook or LinkedIn and we stalk the person, right? And the reason why you're doing that is because you are getting a feel for who this person is so you can begin to align yourself. So for me, you know, when I'm looking at a lover, I will usually go on their about page on Facebook or their LinkedIn page and see where they work so I can begin to see, okay, these are some of the things we share in common. Well, it's the same thing when you go on when you're researching a company. You go on, you see what's going on that's new. You see, you know, who's your boss? Where do they do? All these things help you see what's in common. And when you get into that interview, you're able to speak to that when you get asked the question of why this company? Why now? Those questions you can answer a lot better if you do your research versus it being something like, I think I can grow in this company. Don't say that answer. That's not a real thoughtful answer. But if you do your research and you say, hey, I saw these are some new things going on, that makes you more of a viable candidate and seem more interested in the company and the position, which is what interviewers want to hear. Okay? All right. So the second piece is look at the job description and align your experience. Okay? And that means match up your experience. So pretty much when I am looking for a lover, well, I have one, but the point is that when I am going on that first date, I usually go on and I'm like, okay, let me check out the horoscope. Let me see how we match up. And from there, I'm doing that because it allows me to be able to, once again, match up my experience with this person so we have things to talk about, okay? And I can show that, hey, I'm actually ready for you in certain ways. Well, this is a big thing people often forget when they're interviewing. The job description is the key to getting the job, right? Because people want to hear those buzzwords that match exactly what they're looking for. So my tip to you is take your job description and for each bullet point of the things they're asking for, align a piece of experience that you've got. Give an example, an exact example. So when it's time for you to answer questions about, you know, what is your experience in this or how have you worked with this, you already have it because you've looked exactly through the job description, which is where they crafted the questions from, and your experience matches right there. So I think it's so important that you always look at your job description and match yourself up so that when you're asked tough questions about your experience, you're able to answer them with very concrete answers, okay? So that is the second piece. The third piece is get ready for random questions. So whenever you're on a very thoughtful date or a thoughtful interview, you're always going to be asked some very big question. And it's just what happens, right? So have you ever been on a first date where they ask you, so what do you want to do in the next 5 years? Okay, so everybody who's young, 9 times out of 10, we don't have the most clear answer for that. That's okay, but we got to try to answer it. That's just what we do, right? And you try and answer with your best answer, with all the things that you think that you're ready for. Well, there are certain questions that are typically asked in an interview that you can get ready for that are far-reaching. You could get asked something like, name one of the greatest challenges that you faced throughout your job experience. Most people usually fail at a question like this because they didn't prepare for it. Now, keep in mind, we've all faced challenges, no matter if it was in high school, college, with family. We just face challenges. But in our job career, we have to really pinpoint what is truly a challenge. And I think this is where a lot of people usually look over and they're not able to really answer it. There's even another simple question like, what are your strengths? That's wide-reaching. All of us are just fabulous people. We probably have a lot of answers for that, but you've got to pre-think about your answer. You got to have it down pat because you got to be able to answer it, or the interviewer is going to think maybe they haven't faced enough challenge because they weren't able to answer the question, which is not true, so don't let it count against you. Okay, tip number 4 is something that we all usually win at, but this is just kind of a refresher, which is make sure that you dress for the occasion. Dress your very best. Now, this is a no-brainer. Most people do very, very well at this, so you never have to worry, but I usually go with the general rule is going overdressed is better than going underdressed. So always overdress for the occasion, especially when you're interviewing for the first time. That really counts. And that's the same for a date. You're not going to go on a date looking crazy and it's your first time meeting a person. And if you do, then you need to go home, okay? Because it's more of even a respect thing when you go on your first date. Always look nice, look well, and look like you're ready for this. And that's the same thing that you want to do when you are interviewing for your first job or for a new job. Okay. And the very last thing that is so important that people don't really hone in on is ask good questions in your interview. Okay, so a lot of people are often asked the opportunity to ask a good question, right? Like, what do you have any questions for me? Well, the thing is, you don't want to just say typical questions like, what's the timeline for this? Or, what's the time range in communication for getting back to me about this job? Those are typical, but really thoughtful questions are questions like, what goals do you have for your department? How can this position grow under this office? Those kind of questions make employers feel like you want to come and you want to be a part of that mission. You want to come and you want to grow with them. Those are the things you want to ask. Now, on a first date, you may not want to get that deep, but there are some stronger questions you can ask instead of like, what do you do for your hobbies? You can ask things like, tell me some things that quietly dream about, and questions like that might be a little deep, but they're also fun and light, but they show that you actually care a lot about what this person thinks and feels. So you've got to be able to translate that. So in your first interview, be prepared with good questions. Don't ask a typical short-ended time frame. That's fine, get that, but also go a little bit deeper and show them that you really, really care. Now, one thing I caution on, but you have to use your best judgment with this as well, is don't ask about salary in the first interview. You're not at that level yet, and just to be very blunt, that's like going on the first date and asking somebody how many people they've slept with. Y'all are not there yet to be asking those kind of questions, and so you want to be thoughtful, right? So when asking salary, tip off from that until you get the second or third interview. Then you can kind of lean into it. But the first one, you may really turn off the interview just like you may turn off your date. So please I hope someone took some tips from this today and will be able to apply that to a new job that you're searching for, as this is the time for job search season. And, I just want to explain why I have a little bit of insight on this. I've had the opportunity of interviewing lots of people, from interns to employees, my current colleagues. So I've had the chance of really being a part of the process and seeing what makes a person really break through the ranks and be a standout candidate, and what kind of makes a person just seem like they're not ready. So a lot of these tips stem from that experience, and I really wanted to share it with you guys in hopes that it'll aid you in your job search and when you have that chance to really shine and show your true strengths. So best of luck out there, and I really, really hope that things work out. And thanks so much, and I hope you join next week.
What you say? Oh, that you only meant well. Well, of course you did. What you say?